Good morning, students. Welcome for today's e-learning session of our institute. I hope you will be sound and safe at your home. Now, today we are going to understand the third chapter of social science, which deals with geography, and its name is climate. So, the points that we are going to discuss today are the difference between weather and climate, factors affecting climate, three heat zones of the earth. So, let's move towards the chapter. Mind opener. It is a cold and rainy day, and you have to go out. What kind of clothes will you wear? So, students, you will be wearing sweaters, jackets, shawls if it is cold, and you will be wearing raincoat or carrying an umbrella if it is raining. And what kind of food or drink would you like to have? Obviously, the hot, something hot like Manchurian or some hot drinks like tea, coffee, hot chocolates, and so on. It is a very hot and humid day. What would you like to do during the day? Obviously, you would like to sit at home playing indoor games, watching movies, and so on. What kind of food or drink would you like to have? Obviously, something chilled like ice cream, juices, and so on. Weather and climate. Weather is the condition of atmosphere at a particular place and time. Today might be a cold and rainy day in your city. Tomorrow might be a bright and sunny day. Weather can change from day to day and even from hour to hour. Students, what weather is? It is the atmospheric condition of a place for a particular time. It is for a short span of time. It changes from day to day and even from hour to hour. For example, it may be sunny today or it may rain tomorrow. However, it can be anything else for day after tomorrow. Okay, now let's move towards the climate. Climate, on the other hand, is the average weather condition of a place over a long period of time. The climate in the Himalayan ranges is cold. It is very cold during most months of the year. The climate in and around Chennai is warm and humid, whereas it is hot and dry in the Thar Desert. So, students, climate, in contrast to the weather, is the condition of the weather of a place over a long period of time. Here, an example of Himalayan range has been taken, where it is mostly cold during the year. The second example taken here is of Chennai, where the climate is warm and humid. And the third example about Thar Desert is also mentioned, which experiences hot and dry climate. Now students, there are certain factors which affects the climate. Which are they? Different places in the world have different types of climate. The climate of a place affects the people living there in many ways. The clothes they wear, the food they eat, and the types of houses they live in are all affected by the climate. So students, there are certain factors which are responsible for causing changes in climate, and different places on the earth experience different climate which affects the life of the people living there in many ways. For example, their clothing, food habits, houses, and so on. As you can see in the picture, there is no one in hot and humid day. In rainy days, students are carrying an umbrella, whereas in winter day, they are wearing the sweaters. The factors that determine the climate of a place are distance from the equator, height above sea level, distance from the sea, winds, the amount of moisture in the air. So students, in this chapter we will go through the factors affecting the climate of a place and how do they affect. And those factors are distance, meaning how far is the place from the equator. The second point is about what is the height of a place above the sea level. How distant the place is from the sea. Winds, and how much amount of moisture is present in the air of that place. So all these factors determine the climate of a place. Latitude. So what is the latitude? It shows us the distance from the equator. The earth gets heated by the rays of the sun falling on it. Look at the diagram below. It shows the same amount of rays from the sun falling at different parts of the earth's surface. As you can see, the rays are direct or vertical at the equator and slanting at the poles. The slanting rays have to heat up a large area of the earth's surface than the direct rays that fall on the equator. Hence, places near the equator get heated more than places near the poles. So, what our latitude suggests? It suggests us about how distance of a place from the equator is responsible for affecting the climate. So, how does the earth get heated? Of course, due to the sun's rays. The rays of the sun fall vertically at the equator, whereas they fall slanting towards the poles. Hence, places near the equator receive direct heat from the sun, which is more as compared to those of poles. On the other hand, to reach the poles, the sun's rays have to travel a greater distance through the air. Hence, it loses its heat because of the clouds, water vapor, and dust particles in the air. So, students, as you can see in this figure, how sun's rays fall vertically and travel a short distance to reach the equator, but towards the poles it has to travel a long distance. It cools down the heat of the sun and hence they receive less heat. Also, the sun's rays have to travel a greater distance through the air at the poles than the equator, losing in the process of lot of its heat to the clouds, water vapor, and dust present in the air. Different parts of the earth therefore receive different amounts of heat from the sun. Depending on the amount of heat received, there are three climatic or heat zones on the earth. So students, as we have discussed earlier, to reach the poles the sun's rays have to travel a greater distance, right? So distance through the air, hence it loses its heat because of the clouds, water vapor, and dust particles present in the air. And in this way, different parts of the earth receive different amount of heat so as to differentiate them into three climatic zones. Which are they? So you can see in this figure, the three climatic zones are Frigid Zone at the polar regions, then Torrid Zone at both the sides of the equator, and North Temperate Zone and South Temperate Zone. Now let's discuss it briefly. Torrid Zone. The area on both sides of the equator between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn is called the torrid or tropical zone. The word torrid means extremely hot. As it lies near the equator, this zone receives maximum heat. It is hot throughout the year here. So students, what this paragraph says, so torrid zone is the area on both the side of the equator between the Tropic of Cancer as well as Tropic of Capricorn. And as we have seen earlier that sun's rays fall vertically at the equator, making it too hot. Hence climate near the equator is very hot. The word torrid means extremely hot. Hence the area near the equator between Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn is known as torrid zone. This zone can also be named as the tropical zone. Temperate zone. The areas that lie between the Tropic of Cancer and Arctic Circle in the northern hemisphere and the Tropic of Capricorn and Antarctic Circle in the southern hemisphere are called the temperate zones. This region has a mild climate, neither very hot nor very cold. So students, these are the areas between Arctic Circle and Tropic of Cancer as well as between Antarctic Circle and Tropic of Capricorn at northern and southern hemispheres respectively. These regions lie neither at poles nor near the equator. Hence the climate here is moderate, that is neither too cold nor too hot. Frigid zone. The areas near the Arctic Circle and the North Pole in the northern hemisphere and between the Antarctic Circle and South Pole in the southern hemisphere receive very little heat from the sun. They are very cold and large parts are covered with snow throughout the year. They are called the frigid zone. So the areas between the Arctic Circle and the North Pole and the areas between the Antarctic Circle and the South Pole are the frigid zone because they receive very little heat from the sun, resulting into very cold climate, and mostly those areas are covered with snow throughout the year. Hence they are known as the frigid zone. So this was the first factor affecting the climate. Next move. Here in this figure you can see how vegetation differs from zone to zone. How each zone is having different vegetation. Here this is the map of world indicating climate. Hence it is known as the climatic map of the world. Here in this table you can get the symbol or color. It is the index of the map from which you can get the idea about which color is indicating which kind of climate. And here it is the scale. Students, did you know the North and the South Pole experience 6 months of day and 6 months of night? Places within the Arctic Circle like parts of Norway and Greenland where the sun stays in the sky throughout the day, throughout the night and day are known as the land of the midnight sun. So students, this can also be called as Sumeru Jyoti. Let's move towards the second factor affecting the climate, which is the height above sea level. Have you visited a hill station? You know that it is cooler up in the hills than in the plains, even if the two places are the same distance away from the equator. The higher you go, the cooler it becomes. The peaks of high mountains are covered with snow throughout the year. Thus, the higher a place is from the sea level, the cooler is its climate. Height above sea level suggests an example of a hill station, which has been given here. As we move higher in the hills, it becomes cooler, irrespective of how distant the place is from the equator. So, the top of the high mountains are always covered with snow. Third factor, distance from the sea. Water heats up and cools more slowly than land. This affects the climate of places near the sea. They are warmer in winter and cooler in summer than places far away from the sea. For example, Mumbai is closer to the equator than Delhi. We can therefore expect it to be warmer than Delhi during summer. But this is not so because Mumbai is situated on the sea coast. This makes its climate moderate. So students, what does this paragraph tells us? It tells us that How distance of a place from the sea affects the climate there. So here is the answer. Water heats up and cools down slowly. Hence they are warmer in winter and cooler in summer as compared to those places which are far away from the sea. Here an example of Delhi and Mumbai has been given, in which Mumbai is situated on the sea coast. Hence during summer the climate is moderate but it is extremely hot in Delhi. Though Mumbai is closer to the equator but its location on the sea coast makes the difference. Now let's move towards the another factor, which is winds. Winds tend to flow in particular directions in different parts of the world. They may be hot, cool, dry, or full of moisture, depending on where they come from. For example, the monsoon winds from the Indian Ocean and Arabian Sea bring rain to large parts of India. The hot winds from the Thar Desert make Delhi very hot during summer. Thus, the climate of an area is affected by the winds. So, winds flow in particular directions depending on its origin. Origin means the place where they come from. It may be hot, cool, dry, or having some moisture. The example of Indian Ocean and Arabian Sea has been taken here. The winds from these places bring rain to large parts of our country. Also, the winds blowing from the Thar Desert are very hot, making Delhi very hot during summer. In this way, the climate of a place is affected by the winds. Next factor is the humidity. Humidity is the amount of water vapor in the air. It affects the climate of a place. The air over the equator is laden with water vapor, as the heat of the sun here causes rapid evaporation of the ocean waters. This causes heavy rain in the area, so the climate near the equator is hot and wet. Deserts are formed in places where there is very little humidity and so very little rain throughout the year. So what's the humidity? It is the amount of water vapor present in the air. On the equator, heat of the sun causes rapid evaporation of the ocean waters. Hence, the air there is full of water vapor. Hence, heavy rains occur in these areas. So, the climate near the equator is hot as well as wet. The places where there is very little humidity, deserts are formed because of very little rain throughout the year. So students, this map shows you the flow of monsoon winds. How is it flowing in India? Students, did you know the scientists who study and predict the weather are called meteorologists? They often use satellite pictures of the earth to predict the weather. You may have seen such satellite pictures on weather bulletins on the television. So students, I expect the same from you also. So this way we have come towards the concluding part of the chapter. So students, now you must be knowing weather is the condition of the atmosphere at a particular place and time. Point number 2. Climate is the average weather condition of a large area over a long period of time. Point number 3. The factors that determine the climate of a place are latitude, height above sea level, distance from the sea, and winds and humidity. Point number 4. Places near the equator receive maximum heat from the sun. It reduces as we move toward the poles. Point number 5. The earth can be divided into 3 climatic zones depending on the amount of heat received from the sun: torrid, temperate, and frigid zones. Point number 6. The higher a place is from the sea level, the cooler it is. Point number 7. Places near the sea coast have a moderate climate. And point number 8. Winds and amount of humidity in the air affect the climate of a place. So students, in this chapter we have seen the difference between the weather and climate and how the different factors affect the climate of a place. And the factors we have discussed were the latitude, height above sea level, distance from the sea, winds, and humidity of the place. And we have seen that as per the latitude, our earth has been divided into 3 zones. Torrid zone at the center, temperate zone on both the sides of torrid zone, and frigid zones near the temperate zones on both the sides. So students, I expect that you have understood the chapter very well. Now go through the PDF and complete your writing work on time. Start learning. Stay home, stay safe, and thank you. Have a nice day.